The crimson dust of Nirvana 9 swirled against the carbon-reinforced windows of MacArthur 7 Relief Station. Serena Voss stared at the approaching dust storm, her reflection barely visible in the glass, not her true face, but the metallic visage of her survival suit. The faceplate displayed environmental readings that blinked in warning patterns. Oxygen levels, critically low. Filtration system, failing. Internal temperature, rising. She raised a gauntleted hand to the window. The armor had saved her life countless times, but now it was killing her. Running diagnostics, she muttered to herself, activating the internal systems check. The holographic display flickered inside her helmet, data streams corrupting mid-analysis. The suit's neural interface sparked painfully against her spine, causing her to wince. 5 years on this forsaken planet, and this was how it would end. Not in glorious battle as she had once imagined during the interplanetary war, but slowly suffocating inside her own protection. The irony wasn't lost on her. Through the window, Serena could see the ramshackle buildings of MacArthur 7, a small outpost on the wastes of Nirvana 9, once a thriving mining colony. Now it was little more than a refuge for those with nowhere else to go. Humans, mostly. A few mechanical traders, and exactly one Karnath, herself. The locals called her Shade, a nickname born from the way she kept to the shadows, avoiding the curious and often hostile gazes of the human settlers. Few had ever seen a Karnath, and those who had usually did so through the scope of a weapon. The war had ended, officially, but prejudices lingered like radiation. A particularly strong gust of wind buffeted the station, bringing with it the sound of metal tearing somewhere in the distance. The infrastructure on Nirvana 9 was always one storm away from collapse. Serena turned from the window, the joints of her armor whining in protest. She needed help, and there was only one person in the station with the technical knowledge to fix her suit. Alex Crane, human, microcircuit engineer, survivor. She had never spoken more than 5 words to the man in the 3 months since he had arrived at the station. But now, her life depended on him. The corridor to the engineering bay stretched before her, dimly lit by flickering emergency lights. Each step was laborious, the once responsive exoskeleton now fighting against her movements. By the time she reached the workshop door, warning symbols flashed across her visor, obscuring her vision. "Crane," she called, her voice modulator distorting the word into something barely recognizable. The door slid open, revealing a cluttered space filled with spare parts, diagnostic equipment, and a single human hunched over a workbench. Alex Crane looked up, his eyes widening at the sight of the armored figure swaying in his doorway. "I need—" Serena began. But the suit's systems chose that moment to fail completely. Her visor went dark, and she felt the suit's weight suddenly become a dead burden around her body. As she collapsed forward, the last thing she saw was Alex Crane rushing toward her, hands outstretched, not in fear, but to catch her. In that moment, she knew the war might have ended on paper, but her personal battle for survival had just begun. Alex had never seen a Karnath up close before. He'd heard stories. Of course, everyone had. Tales of superhuman strength, of biological weapons integrated into their very blood. During the war, Karnath soldiers had been the stuff of nightmares for human forces. Now, one lay motionless on his workshop floor, encased in the most sophisticated armor he had ever seen. "Shade," he said, using the name the station residents had given her. "Can you hear me?" No response came from the helmet. The suit's external lights were dark, its systems apparently offline. Alex reached for his diagnostic scanner, running it over the armor's surface. The readings made him frown. "Complete system failure, life support compromised." He had to get her out of the suit, but that was easier said than done. Karnath battle armor wasn't designed to be removed by anyone but its wearer, and certainly not by a human engineer with limited tools. Alex knelt beside the fallen figure, fingers searching for emergency release mechanisms. He found none. "Think, Alex," he muttered to himself. "If you designed this thing, where would you put the fail-safes?" His fingers traced the seam where the helmet met the collar. There, almost imperceptible, a small depression. He pressed it, and felt a slight give. Encouraged. He searched the opposite side and found a matching indentation, pressing both simultaneously. He was rewarded with a soft hiss as the helmet's seal disengaged. Carefully, he lifted the helmet away, prepared for anything, except what he actually saw. The face revealed was surprisingly human in its basic structure, but with distinct differences that marked Serena as Karnath. Her skin was pale with a subtle iridescent quality, seeming to shift slightly in coloration depending on the light. Intricate patterns, either tattoos or natural markings, traced along her temples and jawline. But what caught Alex's attention most were the dark veins visible beneath her skin, pulsing with a faint luminescence. And she was beautiful, in the way deadly things often are. Her eyes snapped open suddenly, startling him. They were entirely black except for amber irises that seemed to glow from within. "Get away!" she gasped, her voice hoarse without the modulator. "Your suit failed," Alex explained, keeping his distance but not retreating entirely. "Life support systems are offline. You would have suffocated." Serena's hand went instinctively to her face, panic evident in her expression, when she realized her helmet was gone. "You removed my helmet. You have no idea what you've done." "I saved your life," Alex countered. "Or endangered your own," she replied, struggling to sit up. Without the suit's power assist, the armor was nearly immobile. "Help me activate the emergency power cell." Alex hesitated only briefly before moving to assist. "Where?" "Backplate, center column, behind the primary shield generator." Working together, they managed to power up the armor's auxiliary systems. It wasn't enough to restore full functionality, but sufficient to allow Serena to move. She immediately reached for her helmet, replacing it with trembling hands. Once her face was safely hidden again, she seemed to relax marginally. "I need repairs. Can you help?" Alex considered the request. The rational part of his mind told him to refuse. Karnath technology was notoriously complex, and integrated with biological systems he barely understood. One wrong move could kill her, or him, if the stories about biological weapons were true. But the engineer in him couldn't resist the challenge. And something else, something he couldn't quite name, made him unwilling to turn her away. "I'll need to run a full diagnostic," he said finally. "And I can't promise anything. I've never worked on Karnath tech before." Through the now functioning visor, he could feel her eyes studying him. "No human has," she said, "but I have no choice. Without this suit—" She left the sentence unfinished. "What happens without the suit?" Alex asked. Serena was silent for a long moment. "I die," she said simply. "Painfully." Alex nodded, already clearing space on his workbench. "Then let's make sure that doesn't happen." The diagnostic process took hours. Serena remained mostly silent as Alex worked, answering his technical questions with as few words as possible. The suit systems were more complex than anything he had encountered before, a seamless integration of technology and biology that seemed to defy conventional engineering principles. "The primary circuit paths are organic," he noted with fascination, examining the holographic schematics projected by his diagnostic equipment. "They're grown, not manufactured." "Karnath technology," Serena confirmed. "We don't build machines. We grow them." "But there are conventional components too," Alex pointed out. "Human-made." "Adaptations," she explained reluctantly. "After the war, resources became scarce. We used what we could find." Alex continued his examination, noting the extensive damage to the suit's life support systems. "This wasn't just wear and tear," he observed. "Something actively degraded these components from the inside." Serena's armored form stiffened.
Can you repair it?
Some of it, Alex admitted. But I'll need parts I don't have. Specialized components.
Where can we find them?
Alex hesitated. The old city. Maybe 10 kilometers east. It was abandoned during the war, but there might be salvageable tech in the ruins. The dead zone, Serena said flatly. Toxic atmosphere. Automated defense systems still active. It's our only option, Alex replied. Unless you have a better idea? She didn't, and they both knew it. We leave at dawn, she decided. The storm will have passed by then. Alex nodded, turning back to his work. There was something she wasn't telling him. Something about the strange degradation pattern in her suit's systems. But he had a feeling, pushing for answers now, would only make her retreat further. Whatever secrets Shade was hiding behind that armor, they would have to wait. For now, he focused on making the necessary temporary repairs to get her through the night.
As he worked, he couldn't help but remember the face he'd seen, the luminescent veins, the strange markings. The stories about the Karnath had always painted them as monsters, barely humanoid weapons created for war.
But the face he'd seen had been unmistakably a person, one in pain. Dawn on Nirvana 9 brought no real sunlight, only a lightening of the perpetual red haze that hung over the planet. The dust storm had indeed passed, leaving fresh drifts of crimson sand piled against the station's eastern wall. Serena waited at the station's main airlock, her armor powered by the temporary repairs Alex had managed overnight. It wouldn't last long, but it should be enough to reach the ruined city and back, assuming they found what they needed. Alex approached, carrying a backpack of supplies and tools. He wore an environmental suit, standard issue for humans venturing outside the station's protective dome. It looked flimsy compared to Serena's armor, but it would keep him alive in the toxic atmosphere.
Ready?
She asked. He nodded, securing his helmet. As I'll ever be. The outer door cycled open, revealing the barren landscape beyond. Nirvana 9 had once been a lush world, or so the terraforming records claimed. Now, it was a wasteland of red sand and twisted rock formations, the failed result of a terraforming project abandoned during the war. They set out across the dunes, Serena taking point. Even with her damaged armor, she moved with a predator's grace, scanning constantly for threats. Alex followed, his gait more awkward in the environmental suit. You said you've been here 5 years, he said over the comm channel. Since the end of the war.
Yes.
Why Nirvana 9? It's hardly paradise. Serena was silent for so long that Alex thought she might not answer. Finally, she said. It was the farthest I could get from both human and Karnath space. A neutral zone. You're running from something, Alex observed.
Everyone on this planet is running from something. Crane?
Alex, he corrected.
If we're going to risk our lives together, you might as well use my name.
She glanced back at him, her expression hidden behind the visor. Alex, she conceded. They continued in silence for a time, crossing the rust-colored landscape. In the distance, the ruins of the old city began to take shape, skeletal buildings reaching toward the hazy sky like the bones of some massive creature half buried in the sand.
What about you?
Serena asked suddenly.
Why come to this wasteland?
Alex's pace faltered slightly. Same as you. Needed somewhere off the grid.
What were you before?
She gestured vaguely at his environmental suit.
You're not just an engineer. Your knowledge of biotech is too advanced.
I worked for the Coalition, he admitted. Weapons research, primarily, then medical applications. You created weapons to use against my kind, Serena stated without accusation, merely noting a fact. I did, Alex acknowledged. And later, I tried to undo some of that damage. That's why I left.
Before Serena could respond, a warning flashed across her HUD.
Movement. 3 o'clock. Coming fast.
Down,
she commanded, dropping to one knee and raising her arm. a small weapon system deployed from her forearm gauntlet, tracking the approaching threat. Alex flattened himself against the sand as a drone shot overhead, its sensors sweeping the area. It was a military model, coalition design, but heavily modified with aftermarket parts. "Mercenaries," Serena whispered. "Scavengers. They hunt for salvageable tech, and occasionally for bounties." "Are you worth a bounty?" Alex asked.
"Every Carnith is," she replied grimly. "Dead or alive."
The drone circled back, hovering now, its sensors focused on their position. Serena's targeting system locked on. "Don't shoot," Alex warned. "If you take it down, they'll know exactly where we are."
"If I don't, it'll report our position anyway."
"Can your suit still cloak?" Serena hesitated.
"Partially. Short duration only."
"Do it," Alex said, "and take me with you." She reached out, grabbing his arm and pulling him close against her armored form.
"Hold still."
The suit's camouflage system engaged with a soft hum. Alex watched in fascination as the armor's surface seemed to absorb the light around it, taking on the reddish hue of the surrounding sand. The effect extended to encompass him as well, though he could see the strain it put on the suit's already compromised systems. The drone hovered for another 30 seconds, sensors sweeping. Finally, apparently satisfied that whatever it had detected was gone, it moved on, continuing its patrol pattern toward the ruins. Serena deactivated the cloak, releasing Alex. "We need to move. More will come." They quickened their pace, heading toward the outskirts of the ruined city. As they drew closer, the true scale of the devastation became apparent. What had once been a thriving colonial outpost was now a graveyard of twisted metal and crumbling concrete, half buried in the ever-present red sand. "What happened here?" Alex asked. "Coalition happened," Serena replied. "When they couldn't hold the position during the war, they scorched it, poisoned the ground and air to deny it to the Carnith forces." Alex winced. He'd heard of such tactics, but had never seen the results firsthand. "I'm sorry." "You didn't give the order," Serena said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely absolving him of responsibility. They reached the edge of the ruins, taking cover behind the remains of what might once have been a defensive wall. Ahead, the broken streets of the dead city stretched into the haze. "Where do we need to go?" Serena asked. Alex consulted a small device, checking the city's old schematics. "There was a research facility in the Central District. If any place would have the components we need, it's there." "Central District means crossing the most exposed terrain," Serena noted, "and likely the heaviest concentration of automated defenses. Can your suit handle it?" Serena ran a quick systems check. "Not in its current state. We'll need to find another way." Alex studied the schematics again. "There might be... Look." He pointed to a series of lines running beneath the city streets. "Maintenance tunnels. They run throughout the entire complex, including under the research facility." "Tunnels mean confined spaces," Serena warned. "Limited maneuverability if we encounter trouble."
"It's that or cross 2 kilometers of open ground with active defense turrets," Alex countered.
Serena considered their options. "Tunnels it is, but stay close. If my systems fail down there..." She didn't need to finish the thought. They both knew what was at stake. Finding an entrance to the tunnel system proved easier than expected. A collapsed section of road had exposed a maintenance shaft, its hatch hanging open on damaged hinges. Alex went first, his suit's lights illuminating the darkness below. Serena followed, her larger frame barely fitting through the opening. The tunnel beyond was surprisingly intact. Though dust and debris littered the floor, emergency lighting still functioned in places, casting an eerie blue glow over the corridor. "Power's still on," Alex noted with surprise.
"Automated systems," Serena explained. "Designed to run for decades without maintenance. The coalition built to last, if nothing else." They moved cautiously through the tunnels, following Alex's map toward the research facility.
The air was stale but breathable for humans. Alex's suit filters confirmed it was free of the toxic compounds that plagued the surface. For Serena, however, the environment remained hostile. Her armor's integrity was the only thing keeping her alive. "Your suit," Alex said, after they had been walking for some time. "You said you'd die without it. Is that true of all Karnath? Or just you?" Serena's pace slowed slightly. "What do you know about Karnath physiology, Alex?" "Only what coalition propaganda told us. Superhuman strength, integrated biological weapons, adaptable immune systems." "Some of that is true," she acknowledged. "But incomplete. Karnath were engineered, originally. Created as a specialized fighting force for wars, humans didn't want to fight themselves." "Created by humans?" Alex asked, surprised. "Long ago, yes. But we evolved, became our own species, developed our own civilization, our own technology. By the time the interplanetary war began, we had been independent for generations. So the armor is unique to me," Serena admitted. "A consequence of something that happened during the war." Before she could elaborate, her suit's sensors picked up movement ahead. She raised a hand, signaling Alex to stop. "We're not alone down here," she whispered. The tunnel ahead widened into a junction chamber, multiple corridors branching off in different directions. Serena's sensors indicated movement in the chamber, irregular, mechanical motion. "Maintenance drones," she guessed. "Probably malfunctioning after all this time." Alex nodded, checking his map. "We need to take the third corridor on the right. It leads directly under the research facility." "I'll go first," Serena decided. "Stay behind me." She advanced cautiously, weapon systems on standby. As they entered the junction, her sensors proved correct. 3 maintenance drones moved about the chamber, their original purpose long forgotten. They appeared to be caught in a loop, attempting to repair damage to the chamber walls with tools no longer suitable for the task. "They don't seem hostile," Alex observed quietly. "Don't assume," Serena warned. After this long, their programming could be corrupted. They edged around the perimeter of the chamber, heading for the third corridor. The drones took no notice of them, continuing their futile repairs. Just as they reached the corridor entrance, Serena's suit emitted a warning tone. The auxiliary power cell was failing. One of the drones paused its work, sensors orienting toward the sound. "Move!" Serena hissed, pushing Alex into the corridor as the drone abandoned its task and began moving toward them. They hurried down the tunnel, no longer concerned with stealth. Behind them, the drone's mechanical limbs could be heard scrabbling against the floor as it pursued. "It's following the energy signature from your suit," Alex realized. "And broadcasting it," Serena confirmed grimly, checking her sensors. "More are coming. We need to reach the facility now." The tunnel began to slope upward, eventually ending at a sealed hatch. Alex examined the control panel beside it. "Security lockout," he muttered. "Give me a minute." "We don't have a minute," Serena replied, glancing back down the tunnel where the sounds of approaching drones grew louder. She pushed him aside gently, then drove her armored fist into the control panel. The panel sparked and died, but the hatch's emergency systems recognized the failure and triggered the release mechanism. The hatch swung open. "That works too," Alex acknowledged, climbing through. Serena followed, pulling the hatch shut behind them, just as the first drone reached it. Metal scraped against metal as the drone attempted to force its way through, but the hatch held. They found themselves in a storage room, dusty equipment still neatly arranged on shelves despite the years of abandonment. Beyond, a doorway led to what appeared to be a laboratory. "The main research floor should be 1 level up," Alex said, consulting his map. Serena nodded, but her attention was on her suit's status display. The auxiliary power was nearly depleted, and the primary systems remained offline. Warning indicators flashed across her visor. "We need to hurry," she said, moving toward the door. The laboratory beyond was a testament to the sudden evacuation that must have occurred when the city was abandoned. Equipment lay where it had been dropped. Research materials still open on workstations. A layer of dust covered everything, undisturbed for years until their arrival. Alex moved quickly through the space, scanning for anything useful. "Look for microcircuit fabrication equipment," he instructed, "or medical technology with adaptive interfaces." Serena began searching the opposite side of the lab, her movements becoming increasingly labored as her suit's power continued to fade. She reached a sealed door marked "Authorized Personnel Only" and forced it open. Inside was a smaller laboratory, clearly designed for more specialized work. And unlike the rest of the facility, this room showed signs of more recent use. The dust layer was thinner, some equipment positioned as if in the middle of operation.
"Alex," she called, "I think I found something."
He joined her, eyes widening at the sight. "This is exactly what we need," he confirmed, examining the equipment. "Biotech integration systems, microcircuit adapters. With these, I can repair your suit's primary functions." As he gathered the necessary components, Serena examined the rest of the lab. On a central workstation, a data terminal still glowed with power, its screen displaying a security login prompt. "Someone's been here," she said. "Recently." Alex looked up from his work, frowning.
"That's not possible. This place has been abandoned for years."
"Then explain this." Serena gestured to the active terminal. "And the lack of dust. Someone's been using this lab." A sudden noise from beyond the laboratory drew their attention, the unmistakable sound of a door opening. "We need to go," Alex whispered, hastily packing the components he'd collected. Serena moved to the doorway, peering cautiously into the main lab. What she saw made her blood run cold. 4 figures in environmental suits had entered, each carrying weapons that were definitely not standard issue. Mercenaries, just as she had feared. And they were methodically searching the lab, moving toward the private research room. She ducked back, signaling to Alex. Mercenaries, 4 of them, armed, were trapped. Alex glanced around frantically, looking for another exit. There was none. Serena checked her weapon systems. With the suit's power so low, she had limited offensive capabilities. In her current state, she couldn't take on 4 armed opponents. "The terminal," Alex said suddenly. "If it's connected to the facility systems, maybe we can trigger a distraction." It was a long shot, but they had no other options. While Serena positioned herself by the door, ready to defend if discovered, Alex worked on the terminal. After several tense moments, he managed to bypass the security protocols. "I'm in," he whispered. "Accessing environmental controls. I can trigger the fire suppression system in the main lab." "Do it," Serena urged, hearing the mercenaries drawing closer. Alex executed the command. Immediately. Alarms blared throughout the facility, and the sprinkler system in the main laboratory activated, spraying a chemical fire retardant. The mercenaries shouted in surprise, their search momentarily disrupted. "Now," Serena said, pulling Alex toward the door. "Stay low and head for the exit." They slipped into the main lab, using the confusion and limited visibility from the sprinklers to their advantage. The mercenaries were preoccupied with protecting their equipment from the spray, cursing loudly. Serena and Alex had almost reached the exit when one of the mercenaries spotted them. "There!" the figure shouted, raising his weapon. Serena pushed Alex forward. "Run!" A burst of weapons fire tore through the air where they had just been standing. Serena returned fire, her suit's weapon system depleting even more of her precious remaining power. The exchange bought them enough time to reach the corridor beyond. "Which way?" she demanded. Alex checked his map hastily. "Left. There's an emergency exit that leads to the surface." They ran, the sounds of pursuit close behind. Serena's suit was failing rapidly now, each movement requiring more effort than the last. By the time they reached the emergency exit, a steep stairwell leading upward, Warning symbols dominated her visor, and the armor's joints locked intermittently.
"I can't make it up,"
she gasped, the suit freezing mid-step. Alex turned back. Seeing her struggle, without hesitation, he positioned himself under her arm, taking as much of her weight as he could. "Yes, you can," he insisted. "Together." Step by painful step, they ascended the stairwell, the sounds of the mercenaries growing closer. Serena's suit was operating on the barest minimum power now, and she could feel the environmental seals beginning to fail. Toxic air from the planet's surface seeped in, burning her lungs with each labored breath. Finally, they reached the top, a heavy security door leading to the surface. Alex strained against it, but it refused to budge. "Powered lock," he realized. "And we triggered the security system with the fire alarm." Serena leaned against the wall, her suit now completely immobile. Through her fading visor display, she could see Alex working frantically at the door's control panel. "Leave me," she said, her voice weak even through the modulator. "Take the components. Save yourself." "Not happening," Alex replied without looking up from his work. "I'm not leaving you to die." "Why?" she asked. "I'm Karnath, your enemy." Alex paused, meeting her gaze through the visor. "The war is over, Serena, and you're not my enemy. You're my patient. Now shut up and let me concentrate." Despite everything, she felt a smile tugging at her lips. No one had spoken to her like that in a very long time. The sounds of pursuit grew louder. The mercenaries had reached the bottom of the stairwell. They had seconds, at most. With a triumphant exclamation, Alex bypassed the final security protocol. The door's locks disengaged with a heavy clunk, and he pushed it open, revealing the red haze sky of Nirvana 9. "Can't move," Serena reminded him, her suit now completely powered down. "Then I'll move you," Alex replied, positioning himself to drag her armored form through the doorway. It was like trying to move a small vehicle. The suit's dead weight was enormous. But somehow, he managed to pull her across the threshold. Once outside, he slammed the door shut and welded it with a tool from his pack, buying them precious time. They were on a maintenance platform high on the side of the research facility, overlooking the ruined city. In the distance, the domed shape of MacArthur 7 was just visible through the haze. 10 kilometers, Alex noted, surveying the terrain. "And your suit's dead." "Not completely," Serena corrected weakly. "Emergency protocol. Remove the primary power cell. Reinitialize with the backup generator." "Where?" "Chest plate, central cavity." Alex worked quickly, finding the access panel and removing the depleted power cell. Beneath it, a secondary system lay dormant. "Manual restart," Serena instructed. "Twist and pull the core." He did as instructed, and the backup system surged to life. It wasn't much, barely enough to power basic mobility functions, but it was something. "It won't last long," Serena warned, as her suit regained minimal functionality. "And it won't support life support systems at full capacity." "It doesn't need to," Alex assured her. "Just get us far enough from here to avoid those mercenaries. I can make repairs once we're safe." They began their journey back across the wasteland, Serena moving stiffly in her barely functioning armor. Alex, staying close to support her when needed. Behind them, they could hear the mercenaries finally breaking through the welded door. But by then, they had descended into a ravine that provided cover for their escape. The return journey was arduous. Without proper life support, Serena's condition deteriorated steadily. The toxic atmosphere of Nirvana 9 seeped through her suit's compromised seals, burning her lungs and causing the luminescent veins beneath her skin to darken ominously. By the time MacArthur 7 came into clear view, she was barely conscious, leaning heavily against Alex as they trudged across the final stretch of rust-colored dunes. "Stay with me," Alex urged, supporting her weight. "We're almost there." "The components," Serena managed through labored breaths. "Don't lose them." "I've got them," he assured her. "And I've got you. Just a little further. They reached the station's outer airlock, just as Serena's suit failed completely for the second time. Alex dragged her inside, cycling the lock with desperate haste. As the inner door opened, he called for help, and two other station residents appeared, startled by the sight of the armored Carnath collapsed in the airlock. "Get her to my workshop," Alex ordered. "Now!" Duh. Consciousness returned to Serena in fragments. First came sensation, the absence of her armor's familiar weight and pressure. Then sound, the soft hum of equipment, the rhythmic beep of monitoring systems. Finally, sight, as she forced her eyes open. She was in Alex's workshop, lying on a makeshift medical bed. Tubes and wires connected her to equipment she didn't recognize, and her armor was nowhere to be seen. Instead, she wore a simple medical gown, leaving her arms exposed, revealing the dark, diseased-looking veins that spread across her pale skin. Panic seized her. Without her armor, without its specialized life support systems, she should be dead. The toxic compounds in her bloodstream should have killed her hours ago. "Easy," came Alex's voice as he moved into her field of vision. "You're safe. The treatment is working." "Treatment?" she managed, her voice raw. "Gene-modified antibiotics," he explained, checking one of the monitors. "Tailored to your specific condition." Serena tried to sit up, but found herself too weak. "My armor." "Being repaired," Alex assured her. "The components we salvaged were exactly what we needed. Your suit will be operational again soon." "How am I alive?" she demanded. "Without the suit's filtration." Alex pulled up a chair beside her bed. "I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. The degradation in your suit's systems, it wasn't mechanical failure, was it? It was biological. Your blood was corroding the components from inside." Serena looked away. "Yes. You're carrying a weaponized pathogen," Alex continued. "One designed specifically to target Carnath physiology. That's why you need the suit, not just for the toxic atmosphere, but to filter the pathogen from your own bloodstream." "How did you know?" "I recognized the molecular structure," Alex admitted. "I helped design the preliminary version, during the war, Project Helix, a biological weapon that would turn the Carnath's advanced immune system against itself." Serena's eyes widened. "You created this?" "The prototype, yes. But it was never deployed. I made sure of that. The final version was developed after I left the program." He paused. "How were you exposed?" Serena was quiet for a long moment. Memories of that day flooding back. "I was a commander in the Carnath Special Forces. My unit was ambushed during the Battle of Proxima Station. We were captured, used as test subjects." "By the Coalition?" Alex asked, his voice strained. "By the Human Unity League," Serena corrected. "A radical faction within the Coalition. They saw the peace negotiations as a betrayal, wanted to ensure that even if political treaties were signed, the Carnath would still be eliminated." Alex closed his eyes briefly, processing this information. "And you escaped?" "After the tests, I was the only one who survived the initial exposure. I managed to steal this prototype survival suit on my way out. It had an integrated medical system that could filter my blood, keep the pathogen contained. I've been living in it ever since, making modifications to extend its functionality." "5 years," Alex murmured. "You've been trapped in that armor for 5 years." "Better than the alternative," Serena said bitterly. "The symptoms when the filtration fails are not pleasant." "I can imagine," Alex replied grimly. "But I think I can help. The antibiotics I've synthesized are working. They're neutralizing the pathogen. It's not a cure. Not yet. But it's a start." Serena stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you help me? Who helped create this weapon?" "Because I left the program for a reason," Alex said simply. "What we were doing was wrong. I became a medical researcher afterward, trying to undo some of the damage. That's why I recognized the pathogen structure. why I knew how to counteract it. He stood, checking another monitor. Rest now. The treatment needs time to work. We can talk more when you're stronger. As he turned to leave, Serena caught his wrist. Her grip was weak, but he stopped immediately. Thank you, she said softly. Alex nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. You're welcome, Commander Voss. Recovery was a slow process. The antibiotics Alex had synthesized were effective at neutralizing the pathogen temporarily, but not at eliminating it completely. Serena would need regular treatments for the foreseeable future, but it meant she could exist outside her armor for short periods, without suffering the debilitating symptoms that had plagued her for years. Her suit, meanwhile, had been fully repaired. Alex had not only fixed the damaged systems, but had improved upon the original design, incorporating more efficient filtration mechanisms and enhancing the power distribution network. It sat in the corner of the workshop, its metallic surface gleaming under the lights. 2 weeks after their return from the ruined city, Serena was strong enough to sit up and even walk short distances. She stood now before a small mirror Alex had provided, examining her reflection with a mixture of fascination and dismay. The pathogen had left its mark on her. The luminescent veins beneath her skin pulsed with a darker glow than was natural for a Carnith, and patches of her iridescent skin had dulled to an ashen gray. She was still recognizably Carnith, but changed, marked by what had been done to her. The treatments are working, Alex observed as he entered the workshop, carrying a tray of medical supplies. Your cellular regeneration is improving daily. Serena turned from the mirror. But I'll never be fully cured, will I? Alex set down the tray, his expression serious. The pathogen was designed to be permanent, to integrate with Carnith DNA and replicate indefinitely. But that doesn't mean we can't manage it. Perhaps even reach a point where you need treatments only occasionally. And my armor? It's ready whenever you are, he assured her. Better than before. Actually, I've upgraded several systems based on what we learned. Serena nodded, grateful but subdued. Freedom from the constant confinement of her armor was a gift she had never expected to receive, even if it was only temporary. There's something else we need to discuss, Alex said, his tone shifting. The mercenaries who chased us in the ruins. I've been monitoring station communications. They're still on Nirvana 9, and they're asking questions about you. Bounty hunters, Serena concluded, looking to collect on a Carnith commander. More than that, Alex corrected grimly. From what I can gather, they're working for someone specific, someone who's very interested in finding you in particular. A cold feeling settled in Serena's stomach. The Human Unity League. Possibly. Either way, we need to be prepared. If they track you to MacArthur 7, they'll come for me, Serena finished. And anyone who helped me. The implication was clear. By helping her, Alex had put himself in danger as well. We should leave, she decided. Before they find us. There are other outposts on Nirvana 9, places more remote than this one. Alex shook his head. Running won't solve the problem. Sooner or later, they'll find us. And you need regular treatments, which requires equipment that's not easily transportable. What do you suggest, then? We find out exactly who's hunting you, Alex said, and we deal with the problem at its source. Serena raised an eyebrow. That sounds suspiciously like you're proposing we go on the offensive. Not exactly, Alex clarified. But I want to know who we're dealing with. And I think I know where to start looking. He activated a holographic display, showing the schematics of the research facility they had escaped from. The active terminal we found, the one that showed recent use, it must have contained data about whoever is using that facility. If we can access that information... You want to go back? Serena asked incredulously. After barely escaping with our lives? Not immediately, Alex assured her. First, you need to regain your strength, And we need a better plan than last time. But yes, eventually, we need what's on that terminal. Serena considered his proposal. It was risky, potentially suicidal. But the alternative, continuing to run, always looking over her shoulder, was no real life at all. All right, she agreed finally. But we do this carefully. And I go back in my armor, at full strength. Alex nodded, relief evident in his expression. Agreed. We'll take all necessary precautions. As they began planning their return to the abandoned city, neither of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the workshop window. Its sensors focused intently on their conversation. 3 days later, Serena stood in her fully repaired armor, running systems diagnostics in preparation for their mission. The improvements Alex had made were impressive. Power efficiency had increased by 30%, and the medical filtration system operated more smoothly than ever before. "How does it feel?" Alex asked, making final adjustments to a connection point. "Better than new," Serena admitted, flexing her armored fingers. The neural interface responded instantaneously, without the lag that had developed over years of makeshift repairs. Alex nodded, satisfied with his work. "The new components should last longer too. I've reinforced the areas where the pathogen was causing degradation." He stepped back, examining his handiwork. "One more thing," he said, retrieving a small device from his workbench. "I've modified your communication system. It now includes an encrypted channel that links directly to my equipment. No matter what happens, we'll be able to stay in contact." Serena accepted the upgrade with a nod of appreciation. Such thoughtfulness was unexpected. She had grown accustomed to relying solely on herself for so long. "Our plan," she prompted, bringing them back to the task at hand. "Right." Alex activated a holographic map of the ruins. "Based on our previous experience, we know the mercenaries are using the old research facility as a base of operations. Our objective is to access that terminal we found and extract any data that might tell us who they're working for. And if we encounter resistance, we avoid engagement if possible," Alex said firmly. "This is a reconnaissance mission, not an assault." Serena nodded, though part of her, the soldier part, itched for confrontation with those who had been hunting her. 5 years of running had taken its toll. "We'll take the transport," Alex continued, referring to a small utility vehicle he had repaired for the occasion. "It's faster than going on foot, and it has basic shield capabilities if we come under fire." The plan was straightforward but solid. Enter the ruins via a different route than before. Avoid detection for as long as possible. Extract the data, and retreat before reinforcements could be summoned. As final preparations were made, Serena found herself watching Alex with a new perspective. His dedication to helping her, a Karnath, a former enemy, went beyond professional interest or even basic compassion. There was something else driving him, something personal. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked finally, as he packed the last of their equipment. Alex paused, considering the question. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "There's more to it than that," Serena pressed. "You've put yourself in danger, expended valuable resources, all for someone you barely know." Alex was quiet for a moment. "During the war," he began slowly, "I was part of a program that developed weapons designed specifically to target Karnath biology. Weapons that exploited your unique physiological traits, turned them into vulnerabilities." He met her gaze, his expression grave. "I justified it to myself as necessary for human survival. But the truth is, we weren't just creating weapons. We were creating suffering. When I realized what my work was being used for, I tried to stop it. I leaked information, sabotaged research, but it wasn't enough." "So this is atonement," Serena concluded. "Maybe partly," Alex acknowledged. "But it's also because in the past 3 weeks, I've come to know you, Serena, not as a Karnath commander, not as an enemy, but as a person who has endured unimaginable hardship with dignity and courage. And that person deserves to be free. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. For 5 years, she had existed in isolation. Her identity reduced to shade, the mysterious armored figure that humans regarded with fear and suspicion. To be seen, truly seen, as herself again was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Thank you," she said simply, unable to articulate the complex emotions his words had stirred. Alex nodded, returning to his preparations. "We leave at dusk," he said. "The atmospheric haze will provide additional cover." The journey to the ruins was uneventful, the small transport vehicle skimming over the red dunes at high speed. They approached from the western side this time, avoiding the path they had taken previously. "Energy signatures ahead," Serena reported, monitoring her suit's sensors. "Consistent with security systems and power generators." "They've established a proper base," Alex observed. "More organized than simple scavengers." They left the transport concealed behind a large rock formation and proceeded on foot, using the ruined buildings as cover. Serena moved with practiced stealth despite her armor, and Alex followed her lead, keeping low and avoiding open spaces. As they drew closer to the research facility, the signs of occupation became more evident. Security drones patrolled in regular patterns, and portable shield generators had been set up at key access points. "Military-grade equipment," Serena noted. "These aren't ordinary mercenaries." "Can we bypass the security?" Alex asked. Serena analyzed the patrol patterns. "Yes, but we'll need to time it perfectly." The drones pass each other at 30-second intervals, creating a momentary blind spot. They waited for the optimal moment, then moved swiftly between two collapsed buildings, reaching the facility's western entrance undetected. The door was sealed, but not heavily guarded. Apparently, the occupants relied more on perimeter security than internal measures. Alex made quick work of the electronic lock, and they slipped inside, finding themselves in a service corridor that ran parallel to the main halls. "The research lab should be 2 levels up," he whispered, consulting the facility schematics. They moved cautiously through the corridor, encountering no resistance. The facility was quiet, too quiet for a supposedly active base of operations. "Something's wrong," Serena said, her instincts as a commander activating. "Where is everyone?" Alex frowned. "Could they have abandoned the base?" "Not with all the external security still active. No, they're here. But where?" They reached a stairwell and ascended to the second level. The corridor beyond was dark, emergency lighting providing only minimal illumination. Serena switched her visor to enhanced vision mode, scanning for threats. "Clear," she reported. "Let's move." They continued toward the research lab, the sense of wrongness growing stronger with each step. When they finally reached the laboratory doors, they found them not only unlocked, but slightly ajar. "Trap," Serena concluded immediately. Alex nodded grimly. "Definitely, but we need what's on that terminal." "Wait here," Serena instructed. "I'll go in first if it is a trap. My armor will provide some protection." Before Alex could protest, she pushed the door open and entered the lab, weapons ready. The room beyond was exactly as they had left it, with one crucial difference. The terminal they had come for was gone, its mounting bracket empty. "The terminal's been removed," she reported, scanning the room for any sign of ambush. Finding none, she signaled for Alex to join her. He entered cautiously, his disappointment evident when he saw the empty workspace. "They must have relocated it after our last visit. But why leave everything else untouched?" "Because they wanted us to come back," came a new voice from the doorway behind them. They spun to face the speaker, Serena's weapons automatically targeting the threat. What she saw made her blood run cold. Standing in the doorway was a man in a coalition military uniform, though the insignia had been modified with the distinct emblem of the Human Unity League. Behind him stood 4 armed soldiers, weapons trained on Serena and Alex. Commander Thane. Serena recognized the man immediately, her former captor, the one who had overseen the experiments that had infected her with the pathogen. Commander Voss, Thane replied with a cold smile. Or Shade, as you've been calling yourself. It's been a long time. Not long enough, Serena growled, her targeting systems locking on vital points. She could take out Thane and at least 2 of his soldiers before they could react, but that would still leave Alex exposed. I wouldn't, Thane warned, as if reading her thoughts. My men have orders to kill your human friend first if you try anything heroic. Serena remained tense but didn't fire. What do you want, Thane? What I've always wanted, he replied casually. To complete my work. Project Helix was never about winning the war. Serena, it was about ensuring the Karnath could never threaten humanity again, even in peacetime. By committing genocide, Alex interjected, his voice tight with anger. Thane's gaze shifted to him. Dr. Crane, I was quite disappointed when you left our program. Your work was foundational to Project Helix's success. Success, Alex repeated incredulously. You call this success? Creating a weapon that causes suffering without end? Precisely, Thane confirmed without a hint of remorse. A weapon that doesn't just kill, but ensures that even survivors become walking examples of the price of opposing humanity. He turned his attention back to Serena. And you, Commander, are my most successful test subject. 5 years. And the pathogen is still active, still evolving. Your survival data has been invaluable. You've been tracking me, Serena realized. All this time. Of course. The suit you stole had monitoring systems built in. Systems you never detected despite your modifications. Thane smiled coldly. Every adaptation you made to survive provided us with data on how to make the pathogen more effective against others of your kind. Serena felt sick. All her efforts to survive had unwittingly aided the very people who sought to destroy her species. But now, Thane continued, it's time to conclude the experiment. The final phase requires examination of the long-term effects on Karnath physiology, which means, unfortunately, that we'll need to dissect you. That's not happening, Alex stated flatly, stepping slightly in front of Serena. Thane raised an eyebrow. How touching. The scientist developed feelings for his subject. He signaled to his soldiers. Take them both. Kill the human if he resists, but the Karnath must be taken alive. As the soldiers advanced, Serena made her decision. With lightning speed, she grabbed Alex and activated her suit's cloaking system. The upgraded version Alex had installed was far more effective than the original. Before the soldiers could react, they had ducked behind a laboratory workstation. Weapons fire erupted, tearing through the space where they had just been standing. Serena pushed Alex toward a secondary exit at the rear of the lab. Go, she commanded. I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you, Alex insisted. This isn't a debate, Serena replied firmly. You can't fight them, and I can't protect both of us against these odds. Get back to the transport and be ready to leave. Before he could protest further, she shoved him through the door and sealed it behind him, then turned to face her pursuers. The cloaking system had bought them seconds. Nothing more. Thane's soldiers were already spreading out, using thermal scanning to track her position. Serena knew she couldn't defeat them all, but she could create enough chaos to ensure Alex's escape. She activated her armor's offensive systems, all of them, simultaneously. The power drain would be enormous, but with Alex's upgrades, the suit could handle it for a short time. She launched her attack, targeting the laboratory's structural supports, rather than the soldiers directly. The resulting explosion sent debris cascading down, forcing the troops to scatter for cover. In the confusion, she made her move, charging directly at Thane. The Human Unity League commander barely had time to raise his weapon before Serena was upon him, her armored hand closing around his throat. You tortured me, she hissed, lifting him off the ground. experimented on my soldiers, all in the name of humanity's protection. And I would do it again, Thane gasped, unrepentant despite his precarious position. The Karnath are weapons, not people. Weapons we created and have every right to destroy. Serena's grip tightened. It would be so easy to end him now, to crush his windpipe and be done with it. 5 years of suffering cried out for vengeance. But something stopped her. A realization that killing Thane would only validate his belief that Karnath were nothing but instruments of death. "You're wrong," she said finally. "We are more than what you made us to be, and I will not become the monster you believe me to be." She released him, letting him fall to the floor, gasping for air. "The war is over, Thane. Let it stay that way." Before he could respond, the ceiling above them groaned ominously. Serena's attack on the structural supports had compromised the entire laboratory. Sections began to collapse, forcing both Thane's soldiers and Serena to retreat. Using the chaos as cover, Serena fled through the same exit she had sent Alex through. Her armor's enhanced strength, allowing her to clear debris that blocked the path. Behind her, she could hear Thane shouting orders, organizing his forces for pursuit. The corridor beyond led to an emergency exit, just as Alex's schematics had indicated. Serena burst through it, emerging onto a maintenance platform similar to the one they had escaped to during their previous visit. But this one was lower, closer to ground level. Alex was waiting, having found his way to the same exit point. "This way," he urged, leading her toward a different route than they had taken before. "I found an alternate path back to the transport." They moved swiftly through the ruins, using the buildings for cover as alarms blared behind them. Thane's forces were mobilizing, and security drones converged on their position from multiple directions. "They're coming from everywhere," Alex observed tensely, as they took momentary shelter behind a collapsed wall. "Thane won't let me escape again," Serena confirmed. "Not now that I know the truth about the monitoring systems in my suit." "Can you disable them?" "Already done," Serena assured him. "Your upgrades gave me access to systems I couldn't reach before. I've purged all external monitoring protocols." They continued their retreat, but the path to their transport was increasingly blocked by security forces. Drones filled the sky above, and soldier patrols converged from multiple directions. "We need a diversion," Alex said, surveying their deteriorating situation. Serena's sensors picked up a familiar energy signature nearby. The old weapons testing bunker, she realized. It's just beyond that ridge. If we can reach it, there might be something useful inside. With no better options, they changed course, heading for the low ridge that concealed the bunker entrance. Weapons fire followed them, most shots going wide, but some coming dangerously close. Serena's armor absorbed several hits, the improved shielding holding, but it wouldn't last forever under sustained assault. They reached the bunker entrance, a heavy blast door built into the side of the ridge. It was sealed, but not locked. The facility had been designed to withstand external threats, not contain internal ones. Together, they forced the door open and slipped inside, securing it behind them. The bunker beyond was dark and cavernous, filled with the remnants of weapons testing equipment. Emergency lighting activated automatically as they entered, casting long shadows across the space. "We should be safe here temporarily," Alex said, catching his breath. "These bunkers were designed to withstand orbital bombardment." Serena nodded, scanning the interior. "But we're also trapped. There's no other exit, and Thane's forces will eventually breach that door." "Then we need to find something to fight with," Alex decided, moving deeper into the bunker. This was a weapons testing facility, after all. They searched the space, finding mostly broken equipment and empty weapons racks. Whatever useful technology had once been stored here had long since been removed or destroyed during the evacuation. "Nothing," Alex concluded in frustration. "They stripped it clean." Serena continued her search,
her suit's sensors picking up a faint energy signature from behind a sealed interior door. "There," she indicated. "Something's still active in there." The door was locked with a security system that remained functional despite the years of abandonment. Alex examined it, then shook his head. "I can't bypass this one," he admitted. "It's a biometric lock, keyed to specific authorized personnel." Serena studied the lock, then made a decision. She deactivated her helmet seal and removed it, exposing her face. "What are you doing?" Alex asked in alarm. "The air is toxic, yes," Serena acknowledged. "But I can tolerate short exposure now, thanks to your treatments. And I need to try something." Before he could protest further, she leaned forward, allowing the scanner to read her retinal pattern. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to their surprise, the door slid open. "It recognized you?" Alex asked, confused. "Not me specifically," Serena explained, replacing her helmet. "But Carnath physiology. This must have been a research area dedicated to studying weapons against my kind. The scientists would have needed Carnath genetic samples for testing." The room beyond confirmed her theory. It was a specialized laboratory, smaller than the main facility but packed with equipment specifically designed for biological weapons research. And at its center stood a single stasis chamber, still active after all these years, its power source apparently independent from the main facility. Inside the chamber, suspended in a clear solution, was a vial of glowing blue liquid. "Is that—" Alex began, approaching the chamber cautiously. "The cure," Serena confirmed, her sensors analyzing the contents. "Or at least, a neutralizing agent for the pathogen. They would have needed it for their own protection while working with such dangerous material." Alex examined the chamber's control panel. "It's still viable," he confirmed after running a diagnostic. "But extracting it won't be simple. The stasis field is the only thing keeping it stable." "Can you do it?" "I think so," Alex replied, already beginning the complex process. "But it will take time. Time we may not have." As if in response to his concern, an explosion rocked the bunker entrance. Thane's forces had arrived and were attempting to breach the door. "They're here," Serena observed grimly. "How long do you need?" 10 minutes, minimum," Alex estimated, not looking up from his work. "You have 5, Serena decided, moving toward the bunker entrance. "I'll buy you as much time as I can." "Serena, wait," Alex called, finally looking up. "You can't fight them all." "I don't intend to," she replied. "Just delay them." Before he could argue further, she was gone, sealing the laboratory door behind her to give him additional protection. The bunker entrance was already glowing red from the cutting tools being applied from the outside. Serena positioned herself strategically, weapons ready. She wasn't just buying time for Alex to extract the cure. She was making a stand, here and now, against those who had tortured her, who had tried to turn her entire species into a cautionary tale. The door finally gave way, crashing inward with a shower of sparks. Thane was the first to enter, flanked by his soldiers. "Nowhere left to run, Commander Voss," he observed, surveying the bunker interior. "Where's your human friend? Abandoned you already?" "He's smarter than that," Serena replied, keeping her weapons trained on the intruders. "Unlike you, Thane, still fighting a war that ended 5 years ago." "The official war ended," Thane corrected. "But the real conflict, the one for humanity's future, that continues. As long as Carnath exists, humanity will never be truly safe." "Because you won't let it be," Serena countered. "Peace requires both sides to lay down their weapons. Thane, one side continuing to develop weapons of mass destruction ensures the conflict never truly ends." "Philosophical debates won't save you," Thane said dismissively. "Surrender now, and I might consider allowing your human accomplice to live." Serena laughed bitterly. "We both know that's a lie. You can't afford to leave witnesses. Not with the illegal weapons program you're still running." Thane's expression hardened. "Take her," he ordered his soldiers.
Alive if possible. But don't hesitate to cripple her if necessary. The pathogen is the valuable component, not the host. The soldiers advanced cautiously, weapons ready. Serena knew she couldn't defeat them all, but she didn't need to. She just needed to buy time. What happened next was not part of her plan. The laboratory door behind her opened, and Alex emerged. But instead of the vial of cure, he carried something else entirely, a small, cylindrical device that Serena recognized immediately. A biological containment unit, the kind used to transport hazardous pathogens. "Stop right there," Alex commanded, his voice carrying an authority that made even Thane's soldiers hesitate. "Or I release this." Thane's eyes widened as he recognized the device. "You're bluffing," he said, though uncertainty had crept into his voice. "You wouldn't risk exposure yourself." "I've already been exposed," Alex replied coldly. "Working with Commander Voss has ensured that, but unlike her, I haven't been receiving regular treatments. I'm already infected. The question is, are you willing to join me?" It was a bluff, Serena realized, a desperate one. The containment unit likely held nothing more dangerous than saline solution. But Thane didn't know that. "You're a scientist, not a soldier," Thane challenged. "You don't have the stomach for this kind of sacrifice." In response, Alex's thumb moved to the release trigger. "After seeing what you did to her, what you plan to do to an entire species, I think you'd be surprised what I'm capable of." Thane hesitated, and in that moment of uncertainty, Serena made her move. With lightning speed, she activated her armor's smoke deployment system, filling the bunker with dense, obscuring vapor. In the confusion, she grabbed Alex and pulled him back into the laboratory, sealing the door once more. "Did you get it?" she demanded, once they were temporarily safe. Alex held up a second device, a portable medical injector containing the glowing blue liquid from the stasis chamber. "Got it. But it's unstable outside the chamber. We need to use it soon, or it degrades." "Then we use it now," Serena decided, already removing her helmet again. "Here, with them right outside?" "No better time," she countered. "If it works, I'll be stronger, more capable of fighting our way out. If it doesn't," she shrugged, "then nothing changes." Alex nodded grimly, preparing the injector. "This will hurt," he warned. "The neutralizing agent works by binding to the pathogen molecules and forcing them to break down. The process isn't gentle." "Pain and I are old friends," Serena replied dryly. "Do it." Alex pressed the injector to her neck, at the junction where her armor allowed access to her circulatory system. With a soft hiss, the blue liquid entered her bloodstream. The effect was immediate and agonizing. Serena collapsed to her knees, a scream torn from her throat as liquid fire seemed to spread through her veins. The dark, diseased-looking pathways beneath her skin pulsed violently, then began to fade, returning to the natural luminescence of healthy Carnath physiology. Outside, Thane's forces had regrouped and were attempting to breach the laboratory door. They had minutes at most. Alex knelt beside Serena, supporting her as the neutralizing agent did its work. "Stay with me," he urged. "Fight through it." The pain reached a crescendo, then began to subside, leaving Serena gasping but stronger than she had felt in years. The constant background agony she had lived with for so long, so familiar she had almost ceased to notice it, was gone. "It worked," she whispered in disbelief, examining her arms where the dark veins had already begun to fade. "It actually worked." "For now," Alex cautioned. "The neutralizing agent will need time to fully process the pathogen. You'll need additional treatments, but less frequently as time goes on." The laboratory door shuddered under impact as Thane's forces applied explosives. "Time to go," Serena decided, replacing her helmet and rising to her feet. With the pathogen neutralized, her armor's systems responded more efficiently than they had in years. no longer fighting the corrosive effects of her infected blood.
How? Alex asked, practically. They've got the only exit covered.
Serena glanced around the laboratory, her enhanced vision noting details she had missed before. Not the only exit, she corrected, pointing to what appeared to be a maintenance shaft in the far corner. These weapons bunkers always had emergency evacuation routes for researchers in case of containment breaches. The shaft was narrow, barely wide enough for Serena in her armor, but it offered their only chance. Alex forced the access panel open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. "You first," Serena insisted. "I'll seal it behind us." Alex didn't argue, squeezing into the shaft as the laboratory door began to give way. Serena followed, using her armor's enhanced strength to pull the access panel back into place behind them. It wouldn't stop Thane's forces for long, but it might confuse them long enough to allow escape. The shaft descended at a steep angle, eventually opening onto a narrow maintenance tunnel that seemed to stretch for kilometers into the darkness. "Where does this lead?" Alex asked, as they moved as quickly as the confined space would allow. "Away from the weapons bunker," Serena replied. "These tunnels were designed to put maximum distance between researchers and potential biological contaminants. It should bring us out somewhere on the perimeter of the ruins." They continued through the tunnel, guided by Serena's enhanced vision. Behind them, faint sounds of pursuit echoed. Thane had discovered their escape route. After what seemed like hours but was likely only 20 minutes, they reached the tunnel's end, a vertical shaft with a ladder leading to a surface access point. Alex climbed first, pushing open the hatch at the top to reveal the red-hazed sky of Nirvana 9. They emerged on the far eastern edge of the ruins, nearly 3 kilometers from where they had entered. In the distance, they could see the transport vehicle where they had left it, apparently undiscovered by Thane's forces. "We need to hurry," Serena urged, already moving toward it. "Once Thane realizes where this tunnel exits, he'll redirect his forces to cut us off." They crossed the open terrain as quickly as possible, reaching the transport without incident. Alex took the controls, powering up the engines as Serena secured the perimeter. "Clear," she reported, climbing aboard. "Let's go." The transport lifted off, skimming above the dunes at maximum speed. Behind them, alarm klaxons sounded from the ruined city as Thane's forces mobilized in pursuit. "They'll follow us back to MacArthur 7, Alex noted grimly. "We've lost our safe haven." Serena nodded, accepting this reality. "We knew this might happen, but we have what we came for, the neutralizing agent. And now, we know who we're dealing with." "The Human Unity League," Alex confirmed. "Still operational despite the official peace. Still developing weapons." "Which means we need to expose them," Serena decided. "Not just for my sake, but for all Karnath. If Thane succeeds in weaponizing this pathogen on a large scale." "Genocide," Alex finished, "under the guise of peacetime security." They fell silent as the transport sped across the wasteland, each contemplating the broader implications of what they had discovered. This was no longer just about Serena's survival. It was about preventing a renewed conflict that could dwarf the previous war. MacArthur 7 appeared on the horizon, its dome gleaming faintly in the perpetual haze. But they wouldn't be staying long, just long enough to gather supplies and plan their next move. The war might have officially ended 5 years ago, but for Serena and Alex, a new battle was just beginning. 3 days later, they stood on the shore of what had once been an ocean, now reduced to a vast salt flat that stretched to the horizon. Located on the opposite side of the planet from MacArthur 7, the small oasis they had found remained one of the few places on Nirvana 9 with natural, uncontaminated water. A spring that bubbled up from deep beneath the planet's surface, creating a small, green haven in the endless red wasteland. They had fled MacArthur 7 just hours before Thane's forces arrived, taking only essential supplies and equipment. The transport had carried them as far as it could before running out of fuel, forcing them to continue on foot for the final kilometers. Now, with temporary shelter established and a rudimentary laboratory set up using the equipment they had salvaged, Alex worked on synthesizing more of the neutralizing agent, while Serena kept watch. "How much longer?" she asked, her enhanced vision scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. "A few hours," Alex replied, not looking up from his work. "The process can't be rushed if we want it to be effective." Serena nodded, accepting the reality of their situation. The dose she had received in the weapons bunker had significantly improved her condition, but the pathogen wasn't completely neutralized. She would need regular treatments for some time to come. She turned her attention back to the horizon, where the last rays of Nirvana the Nine's distant sun painted the sky in shades of orange and crimson. The haze that perpetually shrouded the planet created sunsets of extraordinary beauty, one of the few gifts this hostile world had to offer. "We should transmit the data soon," she said, referring to the information they had managed to extract from Thane's systems before fleeing. Evidence of the Human Unity League's continued weapons research, their plans for deploying the pathogen against Karnath populations throughout settled space. "The transmission equipment isn't powerful enough," Alex reminded her. "We'd need a major communications array to reach Coalition headquarters or the Karnath homeworlds." "Then we find one," Serena said simply. "There must be other outposts on this planet with the necessary equipment." Alex looked up from his work, studying her with concern. "Thane will be watching all major communications hubs. It's too dangerous." "More dangerous than allowing him to perfect a weapon that could wipe out my entire species?" Serena challenged. Alex had no answer for that. They both knew what was at stake, and what they risked by opposing Thane and the Human Unity League. "There might be another way," he said after a moment's thought. "The old terraforming control center. It's on the other side of the salt flats, about 100 kilometers from here. If any of its systems are still operational, the communication array would be powerful enough to reach off-world." 100 kilometers across open terrain, Serena calculated. "With limited supplies and Thane's forces between us and the objective." "I never said it would be easy," Alex acknowledged with a faint smile. Despite everything, Serena found herself returning the smile. Nothing worth doing ever is. As night fell on the small oasis, they finalized their plans. The journey would be arduous, crossing the vast salt flats before reaching the mountainous region that housed the terraforming center. They would need to travel by night when the heat was less intense and detection by Thane's aerial drones less likely. While Alex completed the synthesis of the neutralizing agent, Serena conducted maintenance on her armor. The suit had performed admirably during their escape, but the continuous use had taken its toll. Some systems needed recalibration, others required physical repairs. As she worked, she made a decision that had been forming in her mind since their escape from the weapons bunker. With deliberate movements, she removed her helmet, setting it aside. The air of the oasis, while not pristine, was less toxic than elsewhere on Nirvana 9. With the neutralizing agent in her system, she could tolerate limited exposure without immediate harm. It was the first time in 5 years she had voluntarily removed her helmet outside of medical necessity. The sensation of the night air on her skin was both foreign and wonderfully familiar. Alex noticed her action but said nothing, respecting the significance of the moment. He continued his work, allowing her the privacy of this personal milestone. After a time, he approached, carrying a small vial of the completed neutralizing agent. "It's ready," he announced. "This dose should last longer than the previous one. I've refined the formula based on your body's response." Serena nodded, tilting her head to expose the access point at her neck. Alex administered the injection with practiced efficiency, his touch gentle despite the clinical nature of the procedure. "Thank you," she said simply as he stepped back. "For the treatment?" he asked. "For everything," Serena clarified. "For seeing me as a person, not just a Karnath. For helping me when there was nothing in it for you but danger. Alex shook his head slightly. There was something in it for me, he corrected. The chance to right a wrong, to help undo some of the damage my work contributed to.
Is that all?
Serena asked, her amber eyes searching his face. Alex hesitated, then answered truthfully. No, not all. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and possibilities. Neither of them had allowed themselves to consider until now. Finally, Alex spoke again. We should rest. Tomorrow's journey will be demanding. Serena nodded, accepting the gentle deflection. There would be time for such conversations later, if they survived what lay ahead. As she prepared for sleep, arranging her armor beside her makeshift bed, rather than within it for the first time in years, Serena reflected on how drastically her life had changed in just a few short weeks. From isolation and constant pain to whatever this was. Partnership, purpose, perhaps even hope. The pathogen in her blood might never be fully eradicated, but it no longer defined her existence. For the first time since her capture, she felt like Commander Serena Voss again, not just Shade, the mysterious armored figure hiding from the world. She glanced across the small camp to where Alex had already fallen asleep, exhausted from the day's work. His determination to help her, to expose Thane's operation, went beyond professional ethics or even atonement for past actions. There was something more there, something neither of them had yet found the words to acknowledge. With that thought warming her despite the desert night's chill, Serena closed her eyes and allowed herself to rest, truly rest, for the first time in years. The salt flats of Nirvana 9 stretched before them like a vast, crystalline sea frozen in time. Dawn light reflected off the white surface, creating a blinding glare that even Serena's enhanced vision struggled to penetrate. They had begun their journey before first light, hoping to cover as much distance as possible before the heat of day made travel unbearable. Terrain stable for now, Serena reported, her armor's sensors analyzing the surface beneath them. But we should avoid the darker patches ahead. They indicate thin crust over sinkholes. Alex nodded, adjusting his environmental suit settings to compensate for the rising temperature. Unlike Serena's advanced armor, his protection was limited, designed for short excursions, not extended journeys across hostile terrain. "How's your suit holding up?" he asked, noting the subtle differences in her movements since the administration of the refined neutralizing agent. "Better," Serena confirmed. "The new formula seems to be working more efficiently. My systems are reporting less strain on the filtration mechanisms." "Good. That should extend the operational time between treatments." They continued in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts as they traversed the alien landscape. The salt flats, while dangerous, offered one significant advantage: visibility. From here, they could see approaching threats from kilometers away, giving them time to prepare or hide if necessary. By midday, the heat had become oppressive. The salt surface reflected the sun's energy back at them, creating an oven-like effect that even Serena's temperature-regulated armor couldn't fully mitigate. "We need to rest," Alex decided, his environmental suit's cooling systems working overtime. "Find some shelter until the worst of the heat passes." Serena scanned the horizon, identifying a formation of crystallized salt structures rising from the flats about half a kilometer ahead. "There," she pointed. "Those formations should provide some shade." They altered course, heading for the natural shelter. The formations proved better than expected, a series of salt crystal caves that extended several meters underground, where the temperature was significantly cooler. As they settled into the makeshift shelter, Alex checked their water supplies with concern. "We're consuming more than anticipated," he noted. "The heat is taking its toll." "We can ration," Serena suggested. "My suit recycles moisture efficiently." "Your suit also uses that moisture to help filter the pathogen," Alex countered. "Rationing could compromise the treatment's effectiveness." Serena knew he was right, but didn't acknowledge it aloud. Instead, she focused on their next challenge. According to the maps, we'll reach the edge of the salt flats by nightfall. Beyond that, the terrain becomes more rugged, foothills leading to the mountain range where the terraforming center is located. More cover, but harder travel, Alex summarized, and likely more patrols. Thane isn't stupid. He'll have anticipated our potential destinations. He'll expect us to head for a spaceport or major settlement, Serena reasoned. The terraforming center is abandoned, off the standard routes. It might not be as heavily watched. Let's hope you're right, Alex replied, though his tone suggested he expected the worst. They rested through the hottest part of the day, conserving energy and water as best they could. As the temperature began to drop with the approach of evening, they prepared to resume their journey. Before leaving the shelter, Serena performed another systems check on her armor. Most functions remained optimal, but one reading gave her pause. The neural interface that connected her suit to her nervous system showed signs of degradation. "Problem?" Alex asked, noting her hesitation. Serena considered lying, then decided against it. Trust between them had become too important to compromise with deception. "The neural interface is showing stress patterns," she admitted. "Nothing critical yet, but worth monitoring." Alex frowned, moving closer to examine the diagnostic readout displayed on her forearm panel. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "The neutralizing agent should have prevented this kind of degradation." "Unless it's not the pathogen causing it," Serena suggested. "The interface has been in continuous use for 5 years. Nothing is designed to function under those conditions indefinitely." "I can recalibrate it when we reach the terraforming center," Alex offered. "They should have the necessary equipment." Serena nodded, accepting this plan, though privately concerned by the implications. The neural interface was what allowed her to control the armor with the precision of a second skin. If it failed completely, the suit would become little more than an elaborate prison, immobilizing rather than protecting her. They emerged from the salt caves as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the crystalline plain. The temperature had dropped to tolerable levels, and they made good progress across the remaining expanse of the salt flats. As predicted, they reached the edge of the flats by nightfall. The transition was abrupt, white crystalline surface giving way to the rust-colored soil and rocky outcroppings that characterized most of Nirvana 9's terrain. Ahead, silhouetted against the darkening sky, the jagged peaks of the mountain range rose like the spine of some colossal beast. "We should reach the foothills by morning," Serena calculated, scanning the new terrain. The terraforming center is located in a valley on the far side of the first ridge. Alex nodded, his attention on something else entirely. "Serena," he said quietly, "we're being followed." She turned, her enhanced vision immediately picking up what he had somehow sensed: a disturbance on the salt flats behind them, barely visible in the failing light. Small vehicles, moving fast across the white surface. At least 3, possibly more. "Thane's forces," she confirmed grimly. "They must have spotted us from the air and deployed a ground team." "How long until they reach us?" Serena calculated quickly. 2 hours, maybe less. They're moving faster than we can on foot. "Then we don't stay on foot," Alex decided, gesturing toward the rocky terrain ahead. "We need to reach higher ground. Use the landscape to our advantage." They quickened their pace, leaving the exposed salt flats for the relative cover of the rocky foothills. The terrain slowed their pursuers, but also made their own progress more difficult, forcing them to climb rather than walk. As full darkness descended, they found themselves on a narrow ridge overlooking the path they had taken. Below, the lights of their pursuers' vehicles were clearly visible, moving methodically through the terrain they had just traversed. "They're tracking us somehow," Alex observed. "This isn't a random search pattern." Serena ran a comprehensive diagnostic on her armor, searching for any active transmissions or tracking devices. The results were negative. Not my suit, she confirmed. Whatever they're following, it's not a signal I'm broadcasting. Then what? Alex wondered. They shouldn't be able to track us this precisely without some kind of signal. The answer came to Serena suddenly. The neutralizing agent, she realized. The original formula was developed by the Human Unity League. Thane would have ensured it contained tracking markers, standard protocol for biological agents developed for field use. And I synthesized our current supply from that original sample, Alex concluded, his expression grim. I screened for harmful compounds, but tracking markers are designed to be benign, undetectable without specific equipment. So as long as the agent is in my system, they can track you, Alex finished. But without it, the pathogen will reactivate. An impossible choice. Continue treatment and be hunted, or stop treatment and face a slow, painful death as the pathogen reasserted itself. How close do they need to be for the tracking to work? Serena asked, her tactical mind already seeking solutions. I'm not certain, Alex admitted. Biological markers typically have limited range, a few kilometers at most. But if they're using drones to amplify the signal, then distance won't help us, Serena concluded. We need to mask the signal completely. They fell silent, both aware of the limited options available. Finally, Alex spoke. The terraforming center, he said. It would have radiation shielding, standard for any facility housing the kind of equipment used to alter planetary environments. If we can reach it. The shielding might block the tracking signal, Serena finished. It's worth trying. With renewed urgency, they continued their journey through the dark, rugged terrain. The mountain paths were treacherous, especially at night. But Serena's enhanced vision guided them safely through the worst of the hazards. Dawn found them high on the mountainside, looking down into the valley that cradled their destination. The terraforming center sprawled below, a complex of domed buildings and massive machinery, long abandoned but still intact. Unlike the ruins of the city, the center appeared to have been evacuated in an orderly fashion, without the destruction that characterized other abandoned settlements on Nirvana 9. There it is, Alex said, his voice reflecting both relief and wariness. Now we just need to reach it before our pursuers catch up. Serena checked their back trail. The tracking vehicles were no longer visible, but that didn't mean they weren't still following. The mountainous terrain would have forced them to find alternate routes. Let's move, she decided. Fastest way down is that service road. She pointed to a switchback path that descended into the valley, clearly designed for transporting equipment to and from the center. They made their way down as quickly as safety allowed, the massive complex growing larger as they approached. Despite years of abandonment, the structures remained impressive, a testament to the ambitious project that had once sought to transform Nirvana 9 into a habitable world. As they reached the valley floor, Serena's sensors detected movement ahead. She raised a hand, signaling Alex to stop. We're not alone, she warned, scanning the facility's perimeter. Multiple heat signatures inside the main complex. Thane's people, Alex asked, his voice hushed. Unlikely, Serena assessed. The patterns are wrong. These signatures are scattered, disorganized, and they've been here a while, based on the waste heat patterns. Scavengers, then, Alex suggested, or survivors who've taken shelter here. Either possibility presented its own dangers. Scavengers would be territorial, potentially hostile to newcomers. Survivors might be desperate, equally unpredictable. We need to get inside regardless, Serena decided. The communications array is our priority. We'll deal with whatever's in there when we have to. They approached cautiously, using the abandoned equipment outside the facility for cover. The main entrance was partially blocked by a collapsed section of the outer dome, but a secondary access point remained clear, its security systems long dead. As they prepared to enter, Serena performed one last check of her armor systems. The neural interface degradation had worsened during their journey, though still within operational parameters. More concerning was the power supply. The continuous use had drained resources faster than anticipated. Without recharging capabilities, she had perhaps another day of full functionality before systems would begin to fail. "Ready?" Alex asked, checking his own equipment. Serena nodded, drawing a weapon. "Stay behind me. And remember, we're here for the communications array. Everything else is secondary." With that, they entered the terraforming center, stepping into the shadows of humanity's abandoned ambition to reshape a hostile world. Whatever awaited them inside, they would face it together, as they had faced everything since that first desperate moment when Serena had collapsed in Alex's workshop, beginning the journey that had led them here. The interior of the terraforming center was a study in contrasts. Vast open spaces, housing enormous machinery, alongside cramped control rooms, filled with delicate electronics. Dust covered everything, undisturbed for years, except for distinct pathways that indicated recent human presence. The occupants stayed to specific areas, Serena observed, noting the pattern of footprints in the dust. They don't explore the entire complex. "Resource conservation," Alex suggested. "Why waste energy securing areas that offer no immediate value?" They followed the main corridor deeper into the facility, guided by faded directional signs toward the central control hub. According to the facility schematics Alex had studied, the communications array would be accessible from there. As they moved through the silent complex, evidence of hasty evacuation became more apparent. Personal items remained where they had been abandoned. Coffee cups still on desks, jackets hanging on chairs. Unlike the violent abandonment of the city, this had been ordered but urgent, as if the terraforming staff had expected to return someday. "What happened here?" Alex wondered aloud, examining a workstation where calculations remained displayed on a dust-covered screen. "The war," Serena replied simply. When the fighting reached this sector, all non-essential projects were suspended. Personnel were reassigned to military support roles or evacuated to safer systems. They reached a security checkpoint that would have once regulated access to the control hub. The doors stood open, the security systems dark and lifeless. Beyond lay the heart of the terraforming operation, a massive circular room dominated by a holographic projection table in its center. Surrounding the table were workstations arranged in concentric circles, each dedicated to different aspects of the planetary transformation process. And above, a domed ceiling that would have once displayed real-time atmospheric data. "The communications array should be through there." Alex indicated a doorway on the far side of the control hub. Secondary Operations Center, where they would have coordinated with orbital platforms. They crossed the hub cautiously, Serena's sensors continuously scanning for threats. The space appeared empty, but her instincts, honed through years of combat and subsequent survival, told her they were being watched. "We're not alone," she murmured to Alex. "Stay alert." They had almost reached the doorway to the Secondary Operations Center when Serena's warning proved prescient. Figures emerged from shadowed doorways and behind equipment. At least a dozen individuals dressed in mismatched environmental gear and armed with a variety of weapons. "That's far enough," called one figure, clearly the leader. A human woman of indeterminate age, her face weathered by Nirvana Nama's harsh conditions. "This facility is claimed. State your business or leave." Serena assessed the group quickly. Not military. Their stance and equipment were too irregular. Not typical scavengers either. They were too organized, too disciplined in their positioning. "We need access to the communications array," she replied, keeping her own weapon lowered but ready. "We have no interest in your claim to this facility." The leader studied them, her gaze lingering on Serena's armor. "Karnath," she observed. "Don't see many of your kind on Nirvana 9, especially not working with humans." "Times change," Serena replied evenly. "Do they?" the woman asked skeptically. The war might be over on paper, but out here, old hatreds die hard. We don't want trouble, Alex interjected. We just need to send a transmission. After that, we'll leave you in peace. The leader considered this, then made a gesture to her people. They lowered their weapons slightly, though remained vigilant. What kind of transmission? She asked. Serena and Alex exchanged glances. How much to reveal to these strangers? Information about illegal weapons development, Alex said finally, deciding that partial truth was better than an obvious lie. Something that threatens both humans and Karnath. This caught the leader's interest. The Human Unity League, she stated, rather than asked. You're running from Thane and his fanatics. Surprise must have shown on their faces, because the woman gave a harsh laugh. You think you're the first to stumble across their operation. We've been watching them for years, from a safe distance. Of course. Who are you people? Serena asked, reassessing the group with new interest. Deserters. Mostly. The woman replied frankly. From both sides of the conflict. People who realized the war was pointless before the politicians did. We came here when the terraforming project was abandoned. It was remote, self-sufficient, and forgotten. She gestured around the control hub. We've maintained essential systems, kept the place running. It's home now. Then you know about the communications array, Alex pressed. Is it operational? The leader nodded. Mostly. We use it occasionally to monitor transmissions, but rarely to send any. Keeps us off the grid that way. We need to use it, Serena stated, to expose what Thane is doing. The woman studied them both carefully, as if weighing their sincerity. Finally, she came to a decision. Okay, she agreed. But there's something you should know first. The array needs significant power to reach beyond this system. Power we usually can't spare for our basic survival needs. The facility has its own generators, Alex pointed out, which run on fuel we've been carefully rationing for 5 years, the leader countered. A system-wide transmission would burn through a month's worth of reserves, so you better be damn sure your message is worth it. Serena stepped forward, her movement deliberate. With steady hands, she removed her helmet, revealing her face to the group. Many of them tensed, some raising weapons instinctively at the sight of a Karnath. My name is Commander Serena Voss, she announced, her voice clear and unwavering. 5 years ago, I was captured and used as a test subject for a biological weapon designed to eradicate my species. I escaped, but others weren't so fortunate. Now, the Human Unity League is preparing to deploy this weapon on a mass scale, in direct violation of the peace treaty. She gestured to Alex. This man helped me neutralize the pathogen in my system and gather evidence of Thane's operation. If we can transmit this evidence to the proper authorities, both human and Karnath, we might prevent another war, one that would make the last conflict seem minor in comparison. Her words hung in the air, the control hub silent as the deserters processed her story. Finally, the leader spoke again. Show me this evidence, she demanded. Then we'll decide if it's worth our fuel reserves. Alex produced a data storage device from his pack. Everything we gathered from their research facility, he explained, including deployment plans targeting major Karnath settlements. The leader signaled one of her people, who stepped forward to take the device. Nara will verify the data, she explained. She was a communications specialist for the coalition before she deserted. As they waited for verification, the leader introduced herself. I'm Jana, by the way, former coalition security forces. Got tired of killing people for causes I didn't believe in. How many of you are there? Alex asked, looking around at the assembled group. 26, currently, Jana replied. We've lost some over the years, to the environment, to illness. We've gained a few too, other deserters who found their way here. And you've remained undetected all this time? Serena asked, impressed despite herself. Jana shrugged. Nirvana 9 is a big planet, and we're careful. Plus, This facility has radiation shielding that masks most scanning attempts, designed to protect the terraforming equipment from solar flares, but works just as well against prying eyes. The radiation shielding explained why Thane's forces hadn't tracked them directly to the facility, just as Alex had theorized. It was blocking the signal from the tracking markers in the neutralizing agent. After several tense minutes, Nara returned with the data device. "It's legitimate," she confirmed, her expression grim. "Deployment plans, pathogen specifications, everything. They're planning to release it via atmospheric dispersal on 3 major Karnath settlements within the month." Jana's face hardened as she processed this information. "Well, shit," she said finally. "Looks like you'll get your transmission after all." She turned to Nara. "Prep the array, full power, tight beam to both Coalition headquarters and the Karnath High Command." As Nara hurried to comply, Jana turned back to Serena and Alex. "This will take a couple of hours to set up. In the meantime, you look like you could use some rest and supplies." The offer of hospitality, however basic, was unexpected but welcome. They were led to what had once been a staff break area, now converted into a communal living space for the deserters. Food was simple but nourishing, preserved rations supplemented by hydroponically grown vegetables. As they ate, Serena noticed Alex watching her with a thoughtful expression. "What?" she asked. "You're different," he observed. "Since receiving the neutralizing agent. More present." Serena considered this. "For 5 years, all my energy went to survival," she explained. "Fighting the pathogen, maintaining the suit, staying hidden. There wasn't room for anything else. And now," she met his gaze directly, "now I remember who I was before, who I still am, beneath the armor." The moment between them deepened, charged with unspoken possibilities. But before either could say more, Jana approached. "The array will be ready in an hour," she informed them. "But we have another problem. Our perimeter sensors just picked up multiple vehicles approaching from the south, the same direction you came from." "Thane," Serena concluded grimly. "How many?" "At least 3 ground transports," Jana replied. "Estimated 20 personnel, heavily armed. They must have tracked us to the general vicinity before the shielding blocked their signal," Alex reasoned. "Now they're searching the area." "They'll find us eventually," Jana stated the obvious. "This facility is the only logical destination in this region." Serena stood, her decision made. "Then we need to be gone before they arrive. As soon as the transmission is sent, we'll leave. Draw them away from your people." Jana shook her head. "Won't work. They'll search the facility regardless. And when they find evidence of occupation..." She left the implication hanging. "Then we fight," Serena declared. "Together. My armor and combat experience, combined with your numbers and knowledge of the facility, we can repel them." "Or," Alex interjected, "we can make them think there's nothing worth finding." Both women turned to him, questioning. "The terraforming center has atmospheric processors," he explained. "Systems designed to generate specific environmental conditions. Are any of them still operational?" Jana nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "The weather modulation array. We keep it functioning for emergency use. It can create localized storm conditions to discourage unwanted visitors." "Can it generate something more substantial?" Alex pressed. "Something that would make approaching the facility impossible, at least temporarily." Jana exchanged looks with some of her people. "The dust cyclone protocol," one of them suggested. "It was designed to clear large areas of surface material for processing." "Perfect," Alex said. "We send the transmission, trigger the cyclone, and evacuate to a safe distance. By the time the storm clears, our trail will be cold, and any evidence of recent occupation could be attributed to the storm's effects." The plan had merit, though Serena identified an immediate flaw. "Thane's forces will be caught in the cyclone if they're approaching. They'll know it was triggered deliberately. Not if we make it appear to be a natural phenomenon, Jana countered. Dust storms occur regularly on Nirvana 9. The timing would be suspicious, but they couldn't prove intent. And where would we evacuate to? Serena asked practically. The storm would erase our tracks, but we'd still need somewhere to go. Jana considered this. There's an auxiliary facility about 15 kilometers north, a monitoring station for the terraforming process. Small, but shielded. We've used it as a fallback position before. The plan came together quickly after that. While Nara and her team prepared the communications array, others began the complex process of activating the weather modulation systems. Essential supplies were gathered, evacuation routes planned. Serena found herself working alongside the deserters with a sense of purpose she had almost forgotten. These were people who had rejected the artificial divisions of the war, who had chosen coexistence over conflict. In many ways, they represented the future she and Alex were fighting to preserve. As the hour of transmission approached, Serena performed one last check of her armor systems. The neural interface degradation had stabilized somewhat, but power reserves continued to decrease. She estimated perhaps 18 hours of full functionality remaining, enough to reach the auxiliary facility if no combat was required. Alex joined her as she completed her diagnostics. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be," she replied. "You realize that once this transmission goes out, there's no going back. We'll have made enemies of the Human Unity League permanently." "They were already our enemies," Alex pointed out. "Now we're just making it official." Serena smiled faintly at his attempt at humor. True enough. They made their way to the secondary operations center, where Nara and her team had restored the communications array to full functionality. The massive dish on the facility's roof had been realigned, power systems rerouted to provide maximum transmission strength. "We're ready," Nara reported as they entered. The message has been formatted with authentication codes that should ensure it receives priority attention from both Coalition and Karnath authorities. "And the weather system?" Serena asked. "Primed and ready," Jana confirmed. "We'll trigger it immediately after transmission. The cyclone will take approximately 10 minutes to reach full strength, by which time we should be clear of the facility." "Thane's forces?" Alex inquired. "Still approaching. Current estimate puts them at the facility perimeter in 45 minutes. Everything was in place. The moment of truth had arrived. "Send it," Serena commanded, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Nara activated the transmission sequence. The communications array hummed to life, drawing massive power from the facility's reserves as it beamed their evidence across vast interstellar distances. On monitoring screens, they watched as confirmation signals returned. Both the Coalition and Karnath High Command had received the transmission. "It's done," Nara announced, shutting down the array. "Message delivered." "Now we move," Jana ordered. "Activate the weather system and begin evacuation." The deserters moved with practiced efficiency, triggering the cyclone protocol before gathering their supplies and heading for the northern exit. Serena and Alex joined them, following Jana's lead through service corridors toward emergency vehicle bays. As they moved, Serena's sensors detected a sudden surge in the atmospheric conditions outside. The weather modulation system had engaged, drawing dust and debris into an increasingly powerful vortex centered on the facility. Soon, the entire complex would be enveloped in a raging storm of red dust and sand. They reached the vehicle bay to find a collection of rugged transport vehicles, maintenance craft designed to operate in Nirvana Nama's harsh conditions. The deserters loaded their supplies quickly, boarding vehicles in predetermined groups. "You'll ride with me," Jana instructed Serena and Alex, leading them to a lead vehicle. "The storm will provide cover, but we need to move fast. Once Thane realizes what's happening, he'll try to intercept us." As they prepared to depart, a massive tremor shook the facility. Warning lights flashed throughout the vehicle bay. "What was that?" Alex demanded. One of Jana's people checked a portable scanner. Explosion at the south entrance, he reported. They're here early.
How is that possible? Jana questioned. Our sensors had them at least 30 minutes out.
They must have split their forces, Serena realized. Sent a smaller, faster group ahead, while the main force followed more slowly. Another explosion rocked the facility, closer this time.
They're inside, Jana confirmed grimly.
We need to leave. Now. The vehicle bay doors opened, revealing the growing maelstrom outside. The cyclone had already reached impressive strength, red dust swirling in dense clouds that reduced visibility to meters.
Perfect cover, Jana observed, powering up their transport. Stay close to the vehicle ahead of you. We have navigational beacons that will guide us through the storm.
The convoy moved out, entering the howling tempest. Serena's enhanced vision could barely penetrate the dense clouds of dust, but the vehicle's instrumentation seemed to be functioning adequately. Behind them, more explosions echoed from within the facility as Thane's forces fought their way deeper into the complex. They had traveled perhaps 2 kilometers when disaster struck. A massive lightning bolt, a natural phenomenon in Nirvana Nama's dust storms, struck the ground directly in front of their convoy. The lead vehicle swerved to avoid the superheated glass created by the strike, skidding out of control in the loose sand. Jana managed to avoid a collision, but the sudden maneuver sent their own vehicle into a spin. As they fought to regain control, Serena's sensors detected new threats converging from multiple directions. Airborne vehicles, she warned. At least 3, using the storm as cover to approach. Thane, Jana spat. He anticipated our escape route. The convoy scattered, each vehicle now forced to navigate independently through the raging cyclone. Jana's driving skills were impressive, but the terrain and conditions made progress almost impossible. The auxiliary facility is still 10 kilometers north, she shouted over the storm's roar. We'll never make it together. They've positioned forces to intercept the convoy. Then we split up, Serena decided. Alex and I will draw them off. You get your people to safety. That's suicide, Jana objected. Even with your armor. You can't fight Thane's entire force. We don't intend to, Alex explained. But my research suggests the tracking markers in Serena's bloodstream are what led them to us. If we head in a different direction, they'll follow us, not you. Jana considered this, then nodded reluctantly. There's a small survey post about 20 kilometers east, she offered. Minimal facilities, but it has basic life support. You might find shelter there. Perfect, Serena agreed. Now slow down enough for us to transfer to another vehicle. Despite the danger, Jana complied, bringing their transport to a momentary halt in the shelter of a large rock formation. Another vehicle from the convoy joined them, its driver quickly trading places with Serena and Alex. Good luck, Jana said as they prepared to part ways. If you survive this, find us. There's room for 2 more deserters at our table. With that, the 2 vehicles set off in different directions, Jana continuing north toward the auxiliary facility, while Serena and Alex headed east, directly into the heart of the storm. The plan worked, perhaps too well. Within minutes, Serena's sensors detected multiple pursuers, changing course to follow them rather than the main convoy. Thane had taken the bait, focusing his forces on capturing the Karnath commander rather than hunting down the deserters. 5 vehicles in pursuit, Serena reported, monitoring her sensors as Alex drove. 3 ground, 2 air, all converging on our position. Can we outrun them? Alex asked, pushing their vehicle to its limits. Not likely, Serena admitted. This transport isn't designed for speed, but we don't need to outrun them. Just keep them occupied long enough for Jana's people to reach safety. And then what? Alex questioned. We can't keep running forever. Serena had been considering this very question. We make a stand, she decided. Somewhere defensible. Force a confrontation on our terms. The survey post, Alex suggested. If it has any defensive capabilities, Unlikely, Serena cautioned, but it might have communication equipment. If we can contact coalition forces directly, request extraction. It was a desperate plan, but desperation had become their closest companion. They continued east, the storm gradually diminishing as they moved beyond the range of the weather modulation system. As visibility improved, Serena's sensors provided clearer data on their pursuers. "They're gaining," she warned. "Estimated intercept in 20 minutes." "The survey post should be just beyond that ridge," Alex replied, indicating a line of low hills ahead. "If we can reach it before they catch us." He pushed the transport harder, the engines protesting as they climbed the rocky terrain, cresting the ridge. They saw their destination below, a small, prefabricated structure nestled in a natural depression. Its communication dish pointed skyward. "There it is," Alex confirmed, angling the vehicle down the slope. They reached the survey post with minutes to spare, hurriedly securing the transport in a small maintenance bay before entering the facility itself. As Jana had described, it was minimal. A single main room with basic monitoring equipment, a small living area, and rudimentary life support systems. "Communications?" Serena asked, quickly scanning the available equipment. Alex examined the main console. "Operational, but limited range. We might reach orbital platforms, but not other systems without a signal boost." "Any defensive systems?" Serena continued her assessment. "Nothing significant," Alex reported grimly. "Some environmental shields, but nothing designed to repel a determined assault." Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. Their pursuers had arrived. Serena checked her armor's status one last time. Power reserves continued to decline, perhaps 12 hours of full functionality remaining. The neural interface showed increased degradation, but remained operational. Weapon systems were at optimal capacity, for what little good that would do against the force converging outside. "Alex," she said, her voice calm despite their dire situation. "If this goes badly, I want you to know that these past weeks have meant more to me than the 5 years before them." He turned from the console, meeting her gaze. "It's not over yet," he insisted. "We've come too far to give up now." "I'm not giving up," Serena clarified. "But I'm also not delusional about our chances." Before Alex could respond, a communication request flashed on the main console. Thane, no doubt, preparing to deliver an ultimatum. With a nod from Serena, Alex accepted the transmission. Thane's face appeared on the screen, his expression one of smug satisfaction. "Commander Voss," he greeted her. "Dr. Crane, I must commend you on an impressive escape from the research facility. And that transmission you sent? Very thorough. Unfortunately for you, my associates in both the Coalition and the Karnath High Command have already ensured it will be classified as terrorist propaganda." "You can't suppress the truth forever, Thane," Serena replied evenly. "Someone will investigate. Someone will question." "Perhaps," Thane acknowledged. "But by then, Project Helix will be fully deployed, and questions will be moot." He leaned closer to the camera. "Now, let's discuss terms. Surrender peacefully, and Dr. Crane will be permitted to live, under strict supervision, of course. Resist, and we will be forced to take more permanent measures." "We both know you have no intention of letting either of us live," Serena countered. "Your operation is too compromised now. You can't risk witnesses." Thane smiled thinly. "You always were perceptive, Commander. Very well. No more pretense. You have 10 minutes to surrender before we begin our assault. I suggest you use that time wisely." The transmission ended, leaving Serena and Alex facing the reality of their situation. "Options?" Alex asked, his tone practical despite the circumstances. Serena considered their limited choices. "The facility has minimal defensive capabilities, but the natural depression provides some cover. If we can funnel their approach..." We might hold them off for a while. Alex completed her thought. But not indefinitely. No, Serena agreed. Not indefinitely. They set to work with the time they had, using the survey post's limited resources to create a defensive position. Environmental shields were reconfigured to provide additional protection against weapons fire. Entry points were secured where possible. Lines of sight established. As the 10-minute deadline approached, Serena made a final check of her armor's offensive capabilities. With power reserves dwindling, she would need to be selective about weapon usage, prioritizing precision over raw firepower. "They're moving into position," she reported, her sensors tracking multiple signatures surrounding the survey post. "Standard assault formation. They'll hit us from multiple angles simultaneously." Alex nodded, taking position near the main console with an improvised weapon, a piece of equipment modified to deliver a powerful electrical charge. Not lethal, but potentially incapacitating. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "I don't regret any of it. Helping you, fighting this fight." Serena met his gaze through her visor. "Nor do I," she replied simply. The attack, when it came, was both sudden and overwhelming. Explosive charges breached the facility's outer walls from 3 directions simultaneously, followed by armored soldiers pouring through the gaps. Serena engaged immediately, her armor's weapon systems targeting the lead attackers with precision. The initial assault faltered in the face of her resistance, the attackers clearly unprepared for the ferocity of a Karnath commander fighting at full capacity. Bodies fell, and the survivors retreated to regroup. "First wave repelled," Serena reported, checking her armor status. The brief but intense combat had drained power reserves more quickly than anticipated. "But they'll be back, and in greater numbers." Alex had moved to the communications console during the fighting, working frantically at the controls. "I might have something," he called. "The survey post's dish can be reconfigured to amplify our signal. If I can tap into the orbital relay network." "Do it," Serena encouraged, maintaining her vigilance as sensors indicated Thane's forces repositioning for another assault. Outside, a new sound became audible, the distinctive whine of heavy weapons being deployed. Thane was done with surgical strikes. The next attack would aim to obliterate the entire facility. "Alex," Serena said urgently, "whatever you're doing, do it faster." "Almost there," he replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "Just need to align the frequency with the relay station and—" A massive explosion rocked the survey post, collapsing one entire wall. Debris showered down, and emergency systems triggered, filling the facility with warning klaxons and flashing lights. "Got it!" Alex exclaimed triumphantly. "Channel open to Coalition Central Command. Broadcasting now." On the main screen, a response appeared, confirmation that their signal had been received and emergency extraction authorized. Help was coming, but the question remained, would it arrive in time? Through the gaping hole in the facility's wall, Serena could see Thane himself now, directing the final assault. Heavy weapons were being positioned, their barrels aligned with the remaining structure of the survey post. "We need to hold them off a little longer," Alex urged, reading the transmission details. "Extraction team estimates 20 minutes to arrival." "We don't have 20 minutes," Serena assessed grimly. "Those heavy weapons will reduce this place to rubble in less than 5. A decision crystallized in her mind, clear, inevitable, and strangely peaceful. She turned to Alex, removing her helmet one last time so he could see her face. "I'm going out there," she stated simply. "What? No," Alex protested immediately. "That's suicide." "Maybe," Serena acknowledged. "But it will buy you the time you need. The extraction team is coming for you. Alex, you have the data, the evidence. You can finish what we started." "They're coming for both of us," Alex insisted, moving to block her path. "We both make it out, or neither of us does." Serena placed an armored hand gently on his shoulder. "My suit is failing," she admitted.
Power reserves are critical, neural interface degrading. Even if I stay, I won't last much longer.
We'll find a solution, Alex argued desperately. We always have before.
And perhaps we will again, Serena replied with a soft smile.
But right now, one of us needs to keep Thane occupied while the other ensures our message reaches those who can act on it. Logically, that puts me outside, and you in here. Before he could protest further, she leaned forward and kissed him, briefly, but with unmistakable meaning.
Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me beneath the armor.
Then, she replaced her helmet, systems sealing with a familiar hiss, and turned toward the breach in the wall. "Serena!" Alex called after her, his voice breaking. She paused, looking back one final time.
"If I don't return,"
she said, her voice steady through the modulator, "find Jana and her people. Tell them what happened here. And tell them that both humans and Karnath are worth fighting for." With those words, she stepped through the breach, armor gleaming in the harsh light of Nirvana 9's distant sun. Behind her, Alex watched in anguish as she strode directly toward Thane's assembled forces, weapons ready. "Thane!" her amplified voice called out across the rocky terrain. "You wanted me? Here I am." The Human Unity League commander seemed momentarily stunned by her approach, then recovered, signaling his forces to hold fire. "Commander Voss," he acknowledged. A noble but futile gesture. "Where is Dr. Crane?" "Gone," Serena lied smoothly. "Escaped through a maintenance tunnel while I covered his retreat. By now, he's well beyond your reach." Thane's expression darkened with fury. "You expect me to believe that?" "Believe what you want," Serena replied, continuing her advance. "But consider this. I'm the one you truly want. I'm the successful test subject, the one whose data will complete Project Helix. Dr. Crane is merely a researcher, one of many who worked on the program." She stopped, now within optimal combat range of Thane's position. "Take me, and you still have a chance to salvage your operation." Thane studied her, suspicion warring with scientific ambition. The opportunity to recapture his most valuable test subject was clearly tempting. "Lower your weapons," he commanded finally, "and deactivate your armor's offensive systems." Serena complied, or appeared to, in reality. She diverted power from non-essential systems to maintain combat readiness while mimicking deactivation. "Now approach slowly," Thane instructed, motioning his soldiers to create a corridor for her. Serena began walking toward him, each step measured. Her armor's sensors were at maximum sensitivity, mapping the positions of every soldier, identifying their weapons, calculating probabilities. Her power reserves were critically low now, but she had enough for one final effort. As she reached Thane, he smiled coldly. "I knew you would return to me eventually," he said. "The scientist in you must be curious. How the pathogen has evolved. What new applications we've developed."
"The scientist in me died in your laboratory 5 years ago," Serena replied evenly. "But the soldier remains."
With that, she made her move. In one fluid motion, she reactivated her armor's offensive systems and seized Thane, using him as a shield while targeting the heavy weapons positions with precision fire. Explosions erupted as her shots found their marks, destroying the weapons before they could be used against the survey post. Chaos ensued as Thane's forces scrambled to respond without hitting their commander. Serena used the confusion to maximum advantage, moving constantly, keeping Thane securely in her grasp while systematically eliminating the greatest threats to Alex's position. "You've lost, Thane," she told her captive as they moved across the battlefield. "Your weapons are destroyed, your forces scattered, and your operation has been exposed to both governments." "It changes nothing," Thane spat, struggling uselessly against her armored grip. "The Human Unity League has supporters at the highest levels. Project Helix will continue with or without me." "Perhaps,"
Serena acknowledged. But not today, and not with me as your subject. Her armor systems were failing rapidly now, power reserves nearly depleted. The neural interface flickered, causing momentary lapses in control. But she had accomplished her primary objective. The heavy weapons were neutralized, buying Alex the time he needed for extraction. In the distance, new sounds became audible. The distinctive engines of coalition military transports approaching rapidly. The extraction team had arrived ahead of schedule, perhaps responding to the obvious combat signatures. Thane heard it too, his expression shifting from defiance to calculation. "It seems we're out of time, Commander," he observed. "But this isn't over between us." "Yes," Serena corrected him. "It is." With her remaining strength, she hurled Thane toward his scattered forces, creating distance between them as her armor systems began to shut down completely. The neural interface failed, leaving the suit rigid and immobile around her body. She stood there, locked in place by the now powerless armor, watching as coalition forces descended on the battlefield. Thane and his soldiers were quickly surrounded, outgunned and outmaneuvered by the professional military team. From the survey post, Alex emerged, running toward her position. He reached her, just as her visor's display went dark, the final systems failing. "Serena!" he called, searching for a way to release her from the immobilized armor. Inside the suit, she could hear him, but could no longer respond. The armor that had been both prison and protection for 5 years had become a rigid shell, locking her within its embrace. Coalition soldiers approached, securing the area around them. Among them was a medical team, equipment at the ready. "Get this armor off her," Alex commanded urgently. "The power systems have failed, and she's trapped inside." The medical team went to work, using specialized tools to disengage the emergency releases that Serena herself had once shown Alex. Piece by piece, the armor was removed, revealing the woman beneath. As the final components were detached, Serena collapsed forward, her body weak from the strain of combat and the sudden absence of the suit's support. Alex caught her, lowering her gently to the ground as the medical team moved in to assess her condition. "The pathogen," she managed to whisper, her voice hoarse without the modulator. "Without the armor's filtration." "I know," Alex assured her, holding her hand tightly. "But we have the formula for the neutralizing agent. These people can synthesize it. You're going to be okay." Serena wasn't certain she believed him, but the conviction in his voice gave her hope. As the medical team worked around her, administering emergency treatment, she felt a strange sense of peace wash over her. For 5 years, the armor had been her world, her protection against a hostile environment, and her prison in equal measure. Now, for better or worse, that chapter was ending. Whatever came next, she would face it without the barrier of metal and circuitry between herself and the universe. "They're taking Thane into custody," Alex reported, still holding her hand as the medical team stabilized her condition. "The evidence we transmitted is being reviewed at the highest levels. It's over. Serena, we did it." She managed a weak smile. "Not yet," she corrected gently. "But we've made a start." The extraction team prepared to transport them to an orbiting medical facility where Serena could receive proper treatment. As they were loaded onto the transport, she took one last look at the abandoned armor lying in pieces on the red soil of Nirvana 9. For 5 years, it had been her second skin, her barrier against the world. Now, seeing it from the outside for the first time, she realized how imposing it had appeared, how frightening to those who didn't know the person within. "Should we bring the armor?" one of the coalition soldiers asked. Serena shook her head. "Leave it," she decided. "It served its purpose." As the transport lifted off, carrying them away from Nirvana 9, Serena turned to Alex, who hadn't left her side since the moment her armor had failed. "You called me beautiful once," she reminded him softly. when you first removed my helmet in your workshop.
I remember, he acknowledged.
You hadn't seen what I truly was beneath the armor, she continued. The pathogen, the damage it had done.
Alex's expression softened. I saw exactly what you were, he contradicted gently. A survivor, a warrior, a person of extraordinary courage, facing impossible odds with dignity. He took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers.
The armor was never what made you beautiful, Serena. It was what it protected, your spirit, your determination, your capacity to trust again despite everything you'd endured.
As the transport broke atmosphere, the red landscape of Nirvana 9 receded beneath them, growing smaller until it was just another scarred world among countless others. But unlike when she had arrived 5 years earlier, alone, infected, and hiding within her armor, Serena was leaving with something she had never expected to find on that hostile planet: connection, purpose, and the promise of a future beyond survival. The pathogen might remain in her blood, requiring treatment for years to come. The war criminals of the Human Unity League might escape justice, continuing their work in secret. The fragile peace between humans and Karnath might still face challenges and setbacks. But for the first time in 5 years, Commander Serena Voss faced these possibilities not as a solitary figure encased in armor, but as herself, seen, known, and accepted without the barrier that had both protected and isolated her for so long. And in that moment, as the stars came into view beyond the transport's windows, she knew with certainty that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them not alone, but alongside those who had chosen to see beyond armor and species to the person beneath. It was, she reflected as she held Alex's hand tightly in her own, perhaps the most meaningful victory of all,